Here we have a bunch of pandas very upset about our parenting skills. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Noor and welcome to my workshop on the 10 parenting mistakes you didn't know you were making. Before we get started, some things that we need to remember are that parenting is not to be taken lightly just because everyone's doing it. It's a responsibility upon us. And the Prophet ﷺ said, each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible for his flock. So it is only fair that we try to do our best when it comes to parenting. Also, everybody knows children are a blessing, but we should also understand that children can be a test. And knowing and understanding that children can be a test can be a stepping stone for us in terms of being ready for what is to come. So it's not going to be all rainbows and unicorns. It's going to be, they're a blessing, but they're also going to be a test, and they're going to test your patience. They're going to test so many things about you that you would not have known until you had them. It's also important to remember that it's never too late. So even if you think things haven't been going the right way, you can always fix things. As long as we're alive, we still have a chance to fix things as much as we can. You also need to remember that you are already an awesome parent. You need to give yourself credit for researching, trying to find out more about parenting, trying to find out what mistakes you're doing. That itself is one big stepping stone, and not all parents do that, so you should give yourself credit for that. And you should never feel inadequate, because even if there are things that you're doing wrong, there are definitely things that you're doing right. The first mistake we see parents commit is making the dunya the goal when the goal is actually al-firdaus. Parents can be very confused about what they want for their children, and they might be sailing in the parenting ocean without any direction as to where they're going. They want their children to be successful. They want the best for them. But because they haven't defined what they want for their children in quantitative terms, sometimes they can lose sight of what they really, really want for their kids. And so it's very important to sit down and think about what we want for our children and what can be better than Jannatul Firdaus. And we do see parents who spend so much time and effort in trying to get their children to lead a very successful life in this dunya, while children may be losing the akhirah. And that's a major mistake. If you really, really love your children, how can you not think about their akhirah? How can we not think about the life that is eternal and everlasting? And even if we succeed in giving our children everything in this dunya, every success and everything that's great about this world, it is still just one drop in the ocean. Would you rather give your child that drop, or would you rather give them the ocean itself? The other mistake that we do is we don't make enough dua. We think a lot depends on what we do for them, on their own efforts, but sometimes we can forget that everything is in Allah's hands. And when we make dua for our children, sometimes we forget ourselves. We forget to ask Allah to make our parenting journey easy. We may also forget to ask Allah to aid our children in becoming amongst the righteous. And once we make dua and we're doing what we can to parent them the right way, then all we have to do is just trust Allah and leave it to Him, and have faith that He's going to fix everything for you. One super tip that I'd like to mention here is that if you thank Allah for the good, He will give you more. So despite all the not so pleasing things children might do, they may not put their things in place, they may not pick up the toys, there might be a lot of things that we may not be very happy about. Despite all of that, there are some things that our children do right. And if we can thank Allah for all the nice things that our children do, then Allah will give us more of that. One of the other mistakes that parents tend to make is ignoring their children's Islamic education. They may not teach their children salah, or any other etiquettes that are related to Islam that will give them success in this dunya and the hereafter. The dunya related education is helpful for this world, but it's the Islamic education that can help them lead proper lives in this world and the hereafter. Panda here says, please don't lecture too much. Children don't learn that much from lecturing. Like when you try to talk them into doing something, it's not as effective as modeling the good behavior and leading by example. For example, when you learn with them instead of just telling them to learn, or if you pick up the toys with them instead of just telling them to pick up the toys, when you help them to do things practically, they tend to learn that quicker than just lecturing. And there are many reasons why Islamic education should start early. For example, it's better to start memorization of surahs and du'as early because right now their brains are like sponges. They can just absorb anything. We should also pay attention to talk to them about different sensitive things related to puberty, pornography, etc., so that they don't try to get this information from an un-Islamic perspective. It's important that we act as the primary education source for our children so that they can get the right information without being misled into thinking something is okay when it's not. The other mistake that parents can be guilty of is to not listen to or respond to children's needs. The major culprits are our phones. We can get totally swept away and become temporarily deaf to our children while using it. We need to make it a habit to look up from our phones, listen, and respond to our children. Setting maybe fixed times during the day to use the phone can help us better manage even the time we spend on it. No matter what parenting problems come your way, prioritize your bond with your children. Remember that you're always in the same team as them. Let them know that they can come to you to discuss anything, even when they are in the wrong. They should feel safe in your presence and feel like they belong, because every human being, even you and I, just want to feel like we belong, like we're accepted. Always encourage them to communicate with you. When, for example, when they're coming back from school, encourage them to talk about the good things that happened and the bad. Empathize with them, connect with them before you try to advise them about anything. It is also important to show affection. Verbalize your love and appreciation. Be their greatest fan. Tell them what you love and admire about them. For example, you can tell them how gentle, responsible, or loving they are. Like, I saw how gentle you were when you taught your sister to draw that tree, or something like that. When you praise and appreciate them, they tend to do more of it. Isn't that the case with all of us? Shower plenty of physical love. It releases oxytocin that reduces stress and can be calming. The Prophet ﷺ has encouraged us to kiss children. It is a way to show mercy. Also, find ways to make them happy. Keep the happy communication going all the time. The other thing that we tend not to take seriously is regarding respect. Sometimes parents treat children like subhumans. They might treat even their relatives and neighbors better than their own children. What message are we passing on to the children when we treat them like this? Children need to be treated like you would treat any other human being. We need to treat them and speak to them with respect. Speak good or keep silent. What we speak to them becomes their inner voice. Calling them a donkey or calling them stupid will make them believe in such words. This can diminish their self-esteem. So speak proudly about them and let them hear you praise them. You can also ask them for their opinions and allow them to make some decisions so that they feel important, and this can also be a means of training them. The other mistake is about focusing on the negatives. We need to refrain from magnifying the mistakes our children do. We can advise them if needed and then move on. Don't bring up their past misdeeds. Reward them more and punish less. ignore mistakes if they can be ignored. When we do a good deed, Allah has promised us a reward of a minimum of 10 times, and a bad deed is recorded as 1. Keep this 10:1 ratio in mind, and from where else can we learn to be merciful if not from the most merciful? In situations when a child speaks the truth after making a mistake, refrain from punishing as much as possible, because punishing them even after they've spoken the truth can make them attribute truthfulness with punishment. Would you be happier if they made a mistake and also lied about it? Of course not. So it's best to be easygoing and focus on praising them for their good attributes and punishing them as less as we can. The other mistake is about making a huge deal of our children's mistakes. This is kind of tied to the previous point about focusing on the negatives. Even if a kid has made a mistake that cannot be ignored, we still need to take a step back and try to empathize with them, give them the benefit of the doubt, because children, especially teenagers, are themselves going through a lot, and because the part of their brain that deals with emotions develops before the part that deals with thinking, children can act based on their emotions more than adults do. Put yourself in their shoes and try to see their point of view and deal with them as gently as possible. Anger. Who doesn't feel angry? Everyone feels angry at some point or the other. When you feel angry, don't try to pretend it's not there. Simply acknowledge it. It is not anger itself that is a problem, but it is what we do with that anger that we need to think about. When children test our patience, which can be a lot at times, we need to pause and remember that this is a test, that Allah is watching, and how we deal with our children is being recorded. Pausing gives us the break we need to choose our next actions responsibly. Seek refuge from the shaitan and perform wudu, and then deal with the situation as calmly as possible. You want to act in a way that you can be proud of. Because a parent's dua is accepted, don't curse. Use this superpower to ask Allah to guide them to the best of deeds and morals. After everything, if you end up losing it and messing up, apologize and make up. This can also show children how to behave when they mess up. Not making time to have fun. I've been guilty of this for a long time. You might get swamped with work and not realize how quickly time flies. Spending time with the kids doesn't need to be difficult or time consuming. We just need to find activities that interest both us and our children and use it to bond. Try to include them in everything you do. Even tasks like cooking and running errands can be turned into fun activities. From experience, going out on a date with each kid individually is one of the best ways to bond with them. One other mistake that we can make is lowering our expectations of ourselves and our children. You've probably heard of chase the stars and you'll reach the moon. It means that you fall short of what you try to achieve anyway. That's why it's important to aim for excellence and beyond. If you expect more from your children, they'll do more. And if you lower your expectations, they may not perform as well. But children shouldn't feel demotivated by the enormity of what they have to achieve. Hence, they need to be praised and appreciated for every little milestone that they achieve. You also need to have great expectations of yourself as a mom. There's nothing wrong in trying to be a super mom. And after all, the definition of a super mom varies from person to person. You can be super according to your own terms and standards. Even if you don't reach your expectations, aiming high will push you to be greater than you are. Despite everything, since nobody can be perfect, if you do fall short, forgive yourself and keep moving forward. Before we end, one final thing I want to tell any parent is to not get overwhelmed by all the parenting advice out there. There's so much we can do, but nobody can do all. So pick one thing that you liked and found easy to implement and try to follow it. Even if you implement one parenting tip each year, it can make a lot of difference in our children's lives. If you feel like you've messed up with your relationship with your children, you can start from talking to them and apologizing to them before you tell them that you'd like to try harder to be a better parent. Fixing any relationship starts with honestly acknowledging the wrong done to them, if you've done wrong, and seeking forgiveness. What was your favorite lesson from this workshop? You can comment below. Also, share this workshop with other parents. Sharing takes a few seconds, but it can change something in their lives forever. Also, please don't forget to check the link below. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.